morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the day and when in the day you're watching this. My name is Brenda Meller, and this is my show, which I like to call Enthusiastically Self Employed, because I bring on amazing guests to help those of you who are self employed to stay that way and to give you some business and different tips along the way. And for those of you who are watching, whether you're watching us live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or on Instagram, I'd love it if you could do us a favor, drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from. If you could, that lets us know that the live stream is working and picking up. I'm always a little bit like Amanda when we do these things. I'm like, hopefully the live stream picks up. So you know how it is. If you're in a live audience, you can see people and they're waving to you and they're saying your mic's not working. But when we're in the live stream, we rely upon people like Bryn Tillman, who's in the audience on LinkedIn. She's saying, hello, my friend. So now I know the live stream is picking up. And as we're waiting for your comments to come in from the audience, I want to take a moment to introduce you to Amanda. Amanda and I met originally through LinkedIn. We had a good conversation. I said, why don't we come on the LinkedIn show? And Amanda, for those people who haven't met you yet, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I always love to share my story from the very beginning, which is that I found journaling when I was an angsty teenager, having a really hard day. None of my friends could come to the phone. So I picked up a notebook and a pencil and I started to write. And it was that day that I discovered really the magic that there is in journaling. And it was the start for me of building this practice that has served me through my entire life. And now I help other people create practices of their own so they can know themselves, love themselves, and really live lives that they love and are worthy of.
That's awesome. And this topic, this is near and dear to me too. I used to journal. I used to journal. I don't now, but I think, you've been warming me up to the idea. And I wanted to wait until our talk to hear what you have to say about the power of journaling today. For those of you who are joining us, you're seeing the topic up on screen. We're going to be talking today about journaling and how it is more powerful than you think it is. So I'm just going to throw the floor right to you, Amanda, and tell us, and just if you could tell us what we need to know about the power of journaling.
Yeah. So I will start by saying journaling is more than we think it is. So many people seem to think of journaling as the small little thing that fits in a small little box that has to look a particular way. And I talk to people all the time who say things like, yeah, I've tried journaling and it doesn't really do much for me. Or like, I've tried journaling and I don't really like it. Or worse, this is the worst one, which is I've tried journaling and it doesn't work for me. So there must be something wrong with me. And so often it's just a misalignment between what we want our journaling to do for us and how we're going about getting there. I spoke to somebody recently who wanted to use their journaling to move their life forward, to really figure out what direction they were going to go in, how they were going to create this business that they were creating for themselves in a way that felt really sustainable and really good. And then was showing me how he had been journaling and it had talked about how unsatisfying it was. And I was like, oh, yeah, now I get it. Because what you're doing um, could be helpful in some situations, but it's not the way that's going to get you to what you want. So I always love to start with people with what do you want your journaling to do for you? Because journaling can do so many things. Journaling can help us know ourselves and love ourselves and really design lives that we love. Journaling can help us manage our mental health and our anxiety and our stress. Journaling can help us be focused and productive. Journaling can help us to improve our relationships, be better communicators, to be more in tune with how we feel and what we think, and to get better at asking for help, and so, so much more. But one technique isn't going to get you there. There's no one size fits all when it comes to journaling, which I think is where people get really hung up. Because when folks want to start journaling, so many people turn to Google or they turn to that celebrity person who has been talking about journaling and they think, oh, well, this is the way to do it. And there's so many people out there who tell people, here is the way to journal. And if that way to journal doesn't align with your goals, it's really hard to feel like that is a satisfying practice.
That's really great advice. And there might be people watching that are like me. I'm like, I used to have, and I guess it was more of like a diary than a journal, but I used to have a diary when I was growing up through high school, college, and probably young adult was when I stopped writing in there. And maybe they're thinking about, gosh, I've heard about this. I've heard about, you talk about celebrities. I've heard about other people that are journaling and it's helping them and in their business. And a lot of the viewers of this show and listeners of the podcast are self-employed. So talk to us about, that audience. If you are self-employed, how can journaling help you? And also give us some advice on how to even get started with that.
Yeah. So, journaling first and foremost can help us know ourselves. If we are going to be successful in our businesses or in any area of life, we have to know who we are. We have to get really comfortable with who we are. And I want to say hi, Lee. Lee is one of my
Oh,
dearest
hey.
friends, one of my biggest supporters. Lee, thank you for tuning in this morning. Um, but it's so important to remember that we are whole people and we come to everything we do um, as a whole person, bringing all of the different parts. And I love journaling so much because it helps integrate all of those things. It
Mm,
helps us to see patterns and connections between different parts of our lives. Journaling can help. Um, Helps me every morning when I sit down to journal to take stock of how I am and who I am today, because we are all a little different every day. And I love the magic of sitting down and meeting myself fresh every morning. Because when I recognize who I am, how I am, it helps me identify what I need that day. Because I always have my big running to do list, like most self employed people, or most people in general, right?
yeah,
And so being able to look at this list and think through the lens of, well, who am I today? How much energy do I have today? What would really light me up and drive me? And not just, oh, here's this list I have to trudge through. So
right.
just really being able to use journaling to bring our whole selves to everything we do is powerful.
Yeah. And you just made me think, I wish I had started journaling at the beginning of my solopreneur career. Because I remember, and maybe I could even start a journal and start documenting this. I remember the thoughts and the feelings that I was having at that point and how different I am from where I am today in that perspective. And I guess in my mind, I've always thought about maybe this is part of what's holding me back. I thought about journaling and diary being more on a personal level. And, now my focus is, it's not about, the guys and will I be popular at school and, these things that you had a diary about, but now it's more the hopes and fears that we have about our business and even over the past few years with what's been happening with the pandemic and things shifting and now things coming back. I think it could be a really interesting look at, gosh, where I was back then and where I am today. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love having my journal as a growth marker because it
Mm,
is so hard to see our growth. I was thinking yesterday about babies, right? Like babies are tiny. And if you see a baby every day, they don't look like they grow much from day to day. But take a trip by yourself to the grocery store or go away for the weekend, you come back, and all of a sudden, baby has gotten so much bigger, right? But baby has been growing this whole time. We just couldn't see it because we were so close. And we are the same way because we are so close to ourselves. We're in our heads all the time. Journaling gives us the capacity to step away, to step outside, and really gain perspective. I love to use journaling to track my progress toward my goals because it's so hard to feel in the day to day when I have that massive to do list that never seems to
mm.
get cleared, right? It's so easy to feel discouraged and feel like I'm not making progress. But being able to go back in my journal to see where I started and how far I've come can give so much more momentum, so much more confidence, so much more gratitude for the journey, which just helps propel me forward.
That's a great point. So I was wondering as you were talking, and you made me think about this too, is there any science or logic behind the time of day that we journal? Should we do it first thing in the morning? Should we do it? right before we hit the pillow, middle of the day? Should we get into a routine or just journal when the mood strikes? What do you think about that?
I think whatever works best for you is the best way for you to journal. I
Okay.
journal in the morning because that's where it fits in my schedule. But for years and years, I was an evening journaler. And I have discovered that my morning journaling and my evening journaling have different flavors to them. My
Mhm.
morning journaling is much more intentional. It's very focused on who am I? What do I need today? How am I going to make it happen? It is a very action oriented, intention setting kind of journaling that I do in the morning. My evening journaling tends to be much more reflective. It tends to be much more, uh, here's what I did today. Here's how I feel about it. Here's what I'm grateful for. Um, and so it's just a different flavor, and that's what works best for me. If you want to sleep better, taking a few minutes to journal before you go to bed can be a beautiful way to just get everything out of your brain, all that stuff that's going to make your head so heavy and make your brain work overtime as soon as you turn off the light and put your head on the pillow. Just taking a couple of minutes even to just dump all of that stuff out so it's living on paper and not in our brain just has made it can make so much difference.
Yeah, that's a great point. You just made me think about something too as you're talking about different times of day and the mindset and the mood and where you're at. So a few years ago, and I guess I've been doing this for many years now. I have, I guess we could call them journals that I would write something in there for my kids. I have one for my daughter and one for my son, and I would write something in there, and then I would just put it on her desk or her table in her room and wait until she finds it. And then she knows I wrote something in there and she would flip to it and she would write something back. And sometimes I would write a question: how was your day? How are you feeling? Other times I would just write random things like about how proud I am of being her mom and whatnot. And I did the same thing for my son, and my son's a teenager. And parents of teenagers, this is a really good way of communicating with your kids because how was your day? Fine. Would you learn? Nothing. So I'd write things in there and he would write back to me. He was struggling his last few weeks of school, senioritis, really bad. And he's not really academically driven. He just wanted to get through graduation, and he was coming into class late. And we got sick of all the calls we were getting from the high school. I said, "Tell you what, Joshua," I said, "I will give you $100." We had 2 weeks left of school at this point. I said, "I will give you $100 if I don't get any calls from any of your teachers for the last 2 weeks of school." And he did it, and and he forgot about it, and then I wrote in his journal, and this was in June of last year. I wrote in his journal, "Hey, when you read this, come and see me and ask me for the $100 that I owe you." And 6 months went by. It was, like, about 3 weeks ago. I said, "Where's the journal at?" Because I remembered it, and he had forgotten. And he dug up his room, and he finally found it, and he brought it up to me. But I think, I mean, I don't know, would you consider that a journal still if it's written back and forth between people, or is journaling really a solo activity? What do you think?
Um, yes, I would definitely call that journaling. That's
Mhm.
collaborative journaling. And what a beautiful way to use it to build relationships. Like that is so gorgeous. And I'm so excited to think of the people who are hearing this and their wheels are turning on who they can have a collaborative journal with and whose relationship, who they can build relationships with through this. But I want to point out too that journaling, even when we do it by ourselves, is something that can improve our relationships because the more I journal, the more comfortable I get with expressing my thoughts, the better I get at recognizing my feelings and naming those emotions. I have so much better an emotional vocabulary when I have an active journaling practice because I'm practicing tapping in and naming those feelings. And then I can identify what it is I need. So I don't have to make the people around me be mind readers. I can just ask for the help that I need. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I have a lot going on. Can you please help me make dinner by doing these specific things? Is so much better a path to get my needs met than I need some help around here, right? Or some of the things
Yeah.
that I want to, or I'm prone to exclaim when I'm just feeling really frazzled and frustrated. That it's just journaling, even by myself, has made every relationship I have better.
That's amazing, and it's great to think about that, journaling and how it helps to get you to know you better.
Yeah.
And you made me think as we're talking about collaborative journaling too. I do this with my kids. Maybe I should do one with my spouse too. And you made me think of the honey-do list, or why haven't you done that? Or, we sometimes will joke because he's like the neighborhood watch, and he'll say so and so had a tow truck pull up to their house today, and I'll say make sure you write it in the log. Like we don't have a log, but I would always joke, make sure you write it in the log. And I've thought about like getting something where I documented, Chris told me tow truck picked up the neighbor's car, just funny. And then PS, could you please unload the dishwasher tonight? Like that. But going back, all kidding aside, going back to what your point was there, when you journal, it helps you to know you better. And it helps you, I think, also to make sense of and get clarity on some of the thoughts that you're feeling, and even the confidence that you have about your business. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I will say the biggest transformation I have seen in myself and in so many of my clients is that through journaling, we get to know ourselves. The more we know ourselves, the more compassion we can have toward ourselves. It's so much easier to be compassionate to other people than it ever is to be compassionate to ourselves. And the more self compassion we have, the more love for ourselves we can build. And coming from a place of love, we can do anything. We can do all of the hard things in our businesses. We can have all of those hard conversations in life. We can juggle all of the balls and know which balls to sit down when we're tired, right? We can do all of those hard things if we come from a place of self knowledge, self compassion, and self love.
That's great. And so many great things. And I'm seeing some folks that are jumping in here, and people like Susan saying, so excited to catch this live. The great thing about doing these live videos, there's a little bit of a delay. So when we ask you in a moment to our audience to ask you questions, there'll be a little bit of a delay. But I think there's something that's to be said with catching these live, because you get the moment to ask the expert, people like Amanda, questions about journaling. And I think what I'd like to do is we're actually going to change gears, because we're already starting to get some great questions and conversation coming in, Amanda. And I want to give you the opportunity to reflect upon some of the things that are being shared. Because one of the questions I was going to ask you next was about formats. So let me pull up David's question here as an example. I'm going to read the question for those listening on the podcast. David Buck says, journaling is so powerful. I need to devote more time to it. Amanda, do you have any suggestions on the types of journal formats to use?
Yes. And I will start by saying it depends on what you want your journaling to do for you. And this is where the nuance comes in, because there is no one size fits all that's going to meet everybody's needs with journaling all of the time. And I talk often about this need for a toolbox, because when you think about your toolbox at home, you have a hammer in it. And a hammer is really good at specific things. You can pound nails into walls and pull them out, and you can smash lids back down on paint cans. But a hammer won't fix your bathroom sink. You're going to need a screwdriver and a pair of pliers and a wrench. And knowing what tools you have in your toolbox, when to use them, and how to use them helps you get all your fix it jobs done. The same thing with journaling, and having a journaler's toolbox that we can use, and knowing what techniques you have in there, when and how to use them, can help you get all of your needs met. I don't want to say your fix it jobs done, but really it can just meet our needs in so many ways. So I'm going to just briefly share some ways to journal and just see what resonates. One of my favorite ways to journal is stream of consciousness journaling. It is just taking whatever thoughts you have in your brain and dumping them on the page. Sometimes it's called brain dumping or free writing. If anyone has read The Artist's Way and knows about morning pages, that's really the style of it, is whatever's in your head, put it on the page. It can be really good at clearing your brain out. It can be really good, yeah, to relax at the end of the day, just to get all of the stuff here onto paper so that you have more space to think and be creative and breathe and be human, right? It's hard to human sometimes with all of the stuff in our brains. But if if we are prone to go into that negative spiral and really catch ourselves, this is bad and that is bad, and we just ruminate, then it's better to really limit how much of this you do. So again, if you are prone to shame, sadness, anxiety, all of those things, then it's really important to just be careful there. Um,
Yeah.
this is a page I created for myself. I'm a big fan of having some structure in my
Like
journaling,
that.
and I'll just walk really quickly through this document I created for myself, again, out of my
Bring you
need
into
for.
larger view. If you
Oh,
bring you into the
perfect.
larger view so folks can see that too, if
Perfect.
that's okay.
But this came out of my need for more structure. But I love sharing it with people because then folks get ideas of what's possible for them. So in this, I write the date. I have a place where I write my word of the year or my theme because sometimes I come up with these great ideas, and if I don't remind myself every day, then I forget it exists. So every day I write my word of the year. This year I have two, and they're implement and integrate. Then I
What was
give
it?
my
Implement,
space.
and what was the other word?
Integrate.
Integrate. Love it.
Yep, and they go hand in hand. And I love them both together as a pair. And already I've seen them do really beautiful things for me. I have a place to write my ikigai verse or my purpose statement. I have a place where I write my new moon intention. Here's my schedule for the day, my to-do list. I have a habit tracker. I have also 6 intention setting questions that I ask myself every morning, really to be able to figure out what I need and how I'm going to get my needs met. And so, some questions that I have asked myself in the past are: what is the most important thing for me to do today? How can I show up as my best me? What does my soul need today? How will I feed my mind today? How will I take care of my body today? And who will I connect with? So being able to think about my life in a wholeness, right, with these questions and asking myself the same questions every day helps me to identify patterns. It helps me meet myself where I'm at. It gives myself some consistency. So, Susan, great question. Morning pages is a technique that comes out of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She recommends getting up first thing in the morning and just free writing 3 pages, 3 full pages, um, and then just clearing out your brain. And it's a way for creative people to become more creative. Um, it works well for a lot of people who are interested in that. It is hard for some people to write 3 pages a day. So I
Yeah.
always say, like, that is a specific technique for a specific purpose. Um, but it's adaptable, right? Can you write 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day? I'm a huge fan of using a timer in my journaling and writing for time, um, not for amount, but I also don't give myself a quota. That's journaling is just as much about the container that we give it. At uh, it's as much about the space and the time to think as it is about any of our input. And to say we have to write 3 full pages, I think does a lot of us a disservice because sometimes one word is sufficient. Sometimes I write the date on the top of the page and then I sit there for 20 minutes and then I write a single sentence and I thank myself for what I accomplished and then I move on with my day. And so just have being willing to be flexible, to think about what you need out of your journaling and create a path for yourself to get there. Understanding that every day looks a little different, that we're a little different. And it's okay for our journaling to look a little different every day too. We don't have to journal the exact same way every day. I mean, I showed you what I do, but I don't do all of this every day. Um, you can see I didn't answer all of my questions today. Some days I just remind myself of these things that are important. Some days I just do my schedule and then I write 4 pages in my journal, right? So just giving myself the flexibility to be able to show up for myself is the most important thing. Ooh, I
I
love this.
I was actually thinking the same thing as Lee, and I found that I did the typing thing in high school, and I got the handle of it, Amanda, and I can type fast. I was working with my son on a project last night, and he was watching me type, and I don't look down at the keyboard, and I just type really fast. When I write, I feel like my handwriting's a bit messy. It's probably messier when I'm not feeling in a good mood, than when I'm feeling in a good mood, I write, I take the time to write. But I find that it in some aspects, it slows you down when you're handwriting versus typing, but you also get fatigued faster because I'm just not used to writing as much as I used to. What are your thoughts on journaling electronically? And Lee Krausen, thank you for joining us, Lee. Lee mentions an electronic notebook. What are your thoughts on that, Amanda?
I always say the best way to journal is the way that works best for you. I love the magic of handwriting my journal because I do so much on a keyboard and I'm in front of a screen so much that just being able to disconnect does me so much good. And I love what you said, Brenda, about your handwriting looking different depending on the mood that you're in.
Yeah,
That can be so telling when we go back and visit our journals to think, oh, I can tell
that's
just by
true.
my penmanship what kind of a day I had. Most of the pages in my journal look pretty much the same, right? I don't make it fancy. I don't use I learned this year I don't like using different colors in my journal. In my journal, I only write with black ink. On my one pager, I only write with blue ink. I tried to use these beautiful colored markers I got, and I was like, ooh, I don't like how it feels to do colored markers, right? But some people absolutely love that. Some people look at their handwriting and think, oh my gosh, I don't want to handwrite my journal. And cool, type it,
Right.
use an app. Use I love the idea of using an electronic notebook so you get the best of both worlds. I have a really good friend who does all of her journaling with her Apple Pen on her iPad, and that way she gets the joy of writing it but also being able to keep it electronically. So play around, find what works best for you. There are some people, and again, depending on the purpose of your journaling, you might want to go back and revisit it on a regular basis. Other people, for other purposes, just writing it out is good enough, right? You don't necessarily need to go back and revisit every journal entry. So, again, it all goes back to our purpose.
Yeah, I love that. And as you're talking about the purpose of your journal and the goals and things like that we talked about earlier, I see my good friend Kenneth Lang. Hey Kenneth, thanks for watching. He suggests for those of you who are job seekers, maybe watching this video or listening to this later, journaling is really great during job search. Share your feelings there. And he says he still refers back to what he wrote years ago. So in this aspect, the goal of the journal could be just documenting the job search journey. And I think that's perfectly fine. I what do you think, Amanda?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful way to journal. My brother in law shared with me that years ago, when he was in a job search, he kept a spreadsheet, just an Excel spreadsheet where every day he documented the actions he took in looking for this new job. And he was like, maybe that's kind of like journaling. And I was like, yeah, I would say
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
If you are reflecting and keeping track of data and you're collecting information to measure your progress, that is totally journaling. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning that, when we think of journaling as this tiny little thing that has to look a certain way so it can fit in a small little box, it can only do us so much good. But when we look at the things that we're already doing that are on the cusp of journaling or journal esque, right? How many of us sit down to plan our day? How many of us keep a workout log, right? How many of us jot down notes on the calendar about the great thing that happened today? Those are all forms of journaling. And taking just that extra step of reflection. And I think about it in terms of a workout log, right? Like I keep
Yeah.
track of my sets and my reps because I'm not going to remember as I go through how many I've done if I don't see it tally up on the page. But also, I'm not going to remember the next time I go back to that workout what I lifted or what the circumstances are around it. So if I take a few minutes after my workout to jot down, my left knee was tweaky. I felt really lethargic. Oh, you know what? I didn't sleep well last night, right?
Yeah.
To just put some evidence or some background in there. So the next time I come back to that workout, I can make sure I've slept well. I've had enough protein. I'm hydrated. I'm, not worried about all of those things. But just moving from here are my sets and reps to here are the circumstances around it has elevated it from a workout log to a journal.
That's a really good point. It could be like even things like when you talk about the workout log, was it raining or snowing or cold that day? There's other things that are impacting. And it's funny that you talk about protein.
Yeah.
I'm hearing so much lately about getting more protein in your diet, especially as we age, and the importance of that too. If there's anyone watching who's an expert in protein and nutrition, let me know. Maybe I'll have you on my show. But I want
So
to ask, oh, go ahead.
before you move on, I also want to show you on my one pager. I also keep track of the weather and the phase of the moon because
Okay.
my moods are tied really closely to the weather, especially in the winter time. So I just collect it as a point of data. So when I'm going back through and reflecting, oh, I had a hard day last Tuesday. Oh, guess what? Last Tuesday was rainy, which reminded
Right.
me that the last time I had a hard day, it was rainy, right? So it's just again, another way to collect information to see patterns and put all the pieces together so we really know ourselves.
Yeah, I like it. It's just document. It's like pulling it all together because then you can take a step back and look at the big picture of it. I see a comment coming from Susan, and Susan is mentioning I use Penzu. I'm not familiar with that, but she says I use Penzu in addition to a physical journal, which makes me think that Penzu might be a digital journal. And Amanda, do you have any thoughts or suggestions on apps that allow for a digital journaling? Does anything come to mind that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things out there.
Mhm.
One that comes to mind is Game On. It's spelled GAIM. It stands for gratitude, action, intention, and mindfulness maybe. A friend of mine created it and I'm going to like I probably just slaughtered it, but Game On.
Mhm.
But again, it goes back to you, we each have to find what works best for us. So take, if you wanted to use a digital journaling app, test them, try them
Yeah.
out, see what you think. Maybe what works for you isn't necessarily what's going to work for me, and that's something I love so much, that there's no one size fits all here. It's
Mhm.
figure it out and try it. I know people who keep 6 different journals at a go, one for each specific thing that they're keeping a journal on. I don't do that because I think it's complicated for me, and um that would be putting barriers in my way and getting in my own way. There are people who absolutely love bullet journaling and making their journal really creative and beautiful. And I love that. And I don't do that either because I know myself and will get caught up in all of the stuff of journaling, the markers and
Yeah.
the stickers and the layouts and the embellishments, right? So finding what works best for you, whether it's a physical journal, a digital journal, whether you go back and forth, whether you have a journal just for work. I worked with a client last summer, 2 years ago, who said, I'm here just because I want to use journaling to be a better manager. I'm not really interested in exploring my feelings. I just want to show up better for the people I need to show up for. And we were able to tailor her journaling exactly for that. So, journaling can be all encompassing and cover our whole life if that's what we want. But journaling
Mhm.
can also be really helpful in different segments of our lives. And we get to choose. And if what works for me is different than what works for you, how beautiful is that? Right? That we each get to create a practice that we love that helps us get where we want to go.
I love that. You're inspiring me. And I've got like a box of different notebooks and journals, some of which have been gifted to me, some of which I got at trade shows and events and things like that. And I'm like, someday. And I sometimes I pull them out and it's the kids' journals and things like that. But you just made me think I'm not big on New Year's resolutions. I feel like sometimes they pan out and sometimes they don't. But we're still in the month of January as we're having this conversation here on LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram today. We might be listening to this later on the podcast. I might be a little bit later on in the year, but no time like the present, whatever month you're in, pull out a journal and just start journaling. And that's what I'm hearing from
Yeah.
you, Amanda.
Because,
And what I'd like to do now is as we start to wrap up our conversation, first I want to pull up your LinkedIn profile if that's okay on screen here. And are you open to connecting with folks if they're watching this on LinkedIn? And if so, do you have any instructions that you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, I am absolutely open to connecting with folks. I love to connect with folks who have beautiful journaling practices. I love to connect with folks who have no journaling practice but really want one. And I like to connect with people who are just really curious and somewhere in between. Um, so yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Find me, connect with me. Please connect with me. I think following people is kind of weird. Like, I'm just kind of checking out what you're doing, but I don't want you to really see that I'm here because I'm here for conversations. And if I can help you make your journaling better, that's exactly what I'm here for.
And for those that are listening on the podcast, it's Amanda Stern. Her last name is Stern. If you go to linkedin.com/in/Amanda Stern Journaling, all one word, just one L, which I realized I had a typo earlier. I had two L's, but it is just one L in there. And Amanda, I know that you have creator mode turned on your profile. If it's okay, I'll give folks some instructions on because when they visit your profile and you have creator mode turned on, the people at LinkedIn decided when you turned on creator mode, we're going to change your default button from connect to follow. So what that means, and when you say, "Well, I don't know why you follow people," I don't know why they make that an option because some people actually do want to connect. But when you visit Amanda's profile, you might not see the connect button. You see follow. If you do want to connect with her, you can. You just got to click on the more button. And then underneath that more button, you should see an option that will either say personalize invite or connect. And then if I were you, what I would do is mention, "Hey, I heard you on the interview with Brenda Meller." Like name drop me because then she'll know where you're coming from on there. And it sounds like you're pretty open to accepting those connections. Is that fair to say?
Yep, absolutely fair to say.
All right, great to know. Okay, and then next thing is let's talk about if people are interested in working with you, tell us a bit about, what you offer, if you could.
Yeah, my favorite offering right now is this beautiful group journaling program I have. I call it the Journaling for Growth membership program. It is a monthly membership program where we journal in, around, and through a different topic each month so that we can grow in that area. So this month in January, we're focusing on habits. Next month, we're focusing on relationships of all kinds. We've got the year mapped out, and it's a beautiful way to both journal by ourselves with curated journal prompts and to journal in a group of like minded people who are also interested in learning and growing. And these group journaling sessions that I run just are beautiful spaces with beautiful people where we learn. Um, Not only from our own journaling, but from what others share and what we discover through the process of sharing and giving. So,
That's great. So
yeah, I absolutely love it.
if we go to your website and that's goodthingscometothosewhojournal.com, I'll put that in the show notes. Where could we go to learn about that program if we
I
wanted to enroll?
believe it is in Work With Me up at the top. My website needs a serious overhaul. But if you scroll down, there's a link to book a discovery call.
Yeah.
So yeah, really the best way is just find me on LinkedIn and tell
Yeah.
me you're interested in working with me. So I have that group program. I also work with folks one on one to really create custom journaling practices that start with what do you want your journaling to do for you and help you create that path to get there. So
Awesome.
really I've got some things that are interesting and fun on my website, especially my newsletter. I've got a newsletter that I've been creating for the last couple of years is a beautiful archive of all kinds of journal prompts and ideas and
Oh, I like
resources.
that.
Um, that comes out each Monday morning, and I love to bring journaling resources, inspiration, prompts right to your inbox to really help you think bigger than the little box and imagine what journaling can look like for you.
Great. Well, I just submitted my name and my email because you have inspired me, Amanda, to get going with journaling again. And maybe not even just one journal. Maybe I have one journal for my business, Meller Marketing, and then maybe I start a journal with my husband, and maybe we jokingly use it as the log, but maybe we can communicate with each other through there as well. He's not listening in right now. He's going into work late because we've got some bad weather here, but he's in the other room, so he can't hear me talking about this. So that'll surprise So, Amanda, this has been such a delightful conversation today, and I want to offer you the opportunity. And if any final comments for us on this topic of journaling and how it can be more powerful than we think.
Yeah, I just want everyone to think a little bigger, to think about what you want your journaling to do for you, and really be able to thoughtfully craft a path that will get you there. Because good things come to those who journal, all kinds of good things, and you deserve it. You deserve all of the good things. So, yeah, pick up your pen, open your keyboard, and start typing.
That's awesome. Great advice, Amanda. You've inspired me. Like I said, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, I'm going to wait for the talk. And and one big takeaway for me, and I'm curious for my guests, go into comments and tell me if you have any big takeaways. One big takeaway for me was that I can choose the goal of the journal is to help to document my business journey. And even though right now I'm about 7 years into being self-employed, I can still reflect upon where I came from and where I wanna go next. And I loved that thought. I feel like you gave me permission not to think about journaling the same way I did when I was in high school and college, which was more on a personal level. You gave me, the opportunity to think about using it at a business level. So, Amanda, I just wanna say thank you for that, and I'm looking forward to getting back into journaling again.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what you discover and how journaling helps you, Brenda. So thanks for having me today.
All right, awesome. And by the way, for our viewers and listeners, I just put a comment up on screen. If you enjoyed the discussion, please do us a favor. Amanda and I are self employed, so we don't get performance reviews anymore. So if you enjoyed the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know if you enjoyed this. We would really appreciate it. And also, here's a little LinkedIn tip for all of you. If you have not yet posted on LinkedIn this month, maybe in the past year or, maybe at all, this is your time. As soon as the video is done playing here on LinkedIn, you'll see a little share button at the bottom. Go ahead and click on share, and then you can share that video along as a post. You'll get a opportunity to type in some thoughts along with that. If you do so, then share with people why they should watch it, and also tag in Amanda and me if you could. You'll use the @ sign to tag us in, just start typing in the name, and then we'll appear in a little drop down. When you tag us or mention us in your post, we will get notified. And I know that Amanda and I will both comment back from there. So, with that said, thank you all so much for watching. And I want to just encourage you to come on to my show, listen in every Tuesday. Today's a special edition. We did a 9:05 a.m. I'm typically on Tuesdays at 12:05, bringing in a variety of topics to help you to be enthusiastically self employed. With that said, have a wonderful day, and we will see you all on LinkedIn. Take care. Thank you.